So Ted Cruz praised Bernie Sanders on Chris Matthews' show, and Chris Matthews is actually going to do a decent job here pointing out why Ted Cruz is doing it. And he does it to his face, like he explains his theory to his face. But let's listen to it, and then we'll come back and I'll explain what I think is the real motivation here.
The Democrats, virtually all of them, are supporting this cronyism and corporate welfare. The one person who's standing up strong is Bernie Sanders. This is an issue where Bernie and I are in complete agreement. We need to end this corporate welfare. But far too many Democrats, and I will readily admit, far too many Republicans are supporting hundreds of billions of dollars of loan guarantees to giant corporations at the expense of the taxpayers. I think people are fed up with that. They want someone who will stand with the working man and woman against the bipartisan corruption of Washington.
Is that a strategy on the right to build up Bernie Sanders?
Well, I've said for a long time, I like and respect Bernie Sanders because
you're
he's
building
honest,
him up.
he's
You just
candid.
did it. You took an opportunity for a call out there to build him. What is the strategy to build up Bernie Sanders from the right-wing perspective?
Chris,
now that we're
what
identifying each other.
I respect honesty in politics.
Okay.
Bernie admits he's a socialist. We can have an honest debate.
Well, he is a socialist.
About
He just
whether
admit it. You admit you're a Tea
admits,
Party guy. That's not an admission, it's a fact.
But the difference is I think there are an awful lot of Democrats in the United States Senate whose policies are every bit as liberal or every bit as socialist as Bernie's, but they don't admit it. I'm enjoying watching Hillary Clinton explain to the voters how she's just as much of a socialist as Bernie Sanders. I'd rather an honest debate.
Well, that would be a mistake, and you know that would be a mistake, and that's why you're saying it. If she goes out there and matches Bernie and lets him lead her around, she'll end up looking and sounding like him, which will take her from the center.
See, Chris Matthews is pretty much on point with his theory there that he's laying out to Ted Cruz's face. But I disagree with him slightly as to whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. So let's understand this. In the mind of Ted Cruz, and in the mind of the other Republican candidates and the Republican establishment, people like Bill Kristol and Karl Rove, who always work behind the scenes, in their mind, they think Hillary Clinton is inevitable. They're 100% convinced of it. And they think that if Bernie beats her up in the primary process, that they'll have a much better chance of winning in the general election. Here's the thing. They're wrong. Now, Matthews happens to think they're right. He's afraid of, Bernie Sanders being built up too much and hurting Hillary and pulling Hillary to the left. And in his mind, he thinks, don't go too far left, Hillary, because then you're going to get screwed in the general election. Here's what they're missing. They're comparing the experience of the Democrats to their own experience in 2008 and in 2012. With McCain, what happened? He had to run to the right because everybody who was running against him are fucking idiots. Mitt Romney, same thing. He had to run to the right because he had to deal with people like fucking Rick Santorum. You're gonna debate against Rick Santorum and win in a Republican primary without trying to be like as conservative as he is? You got a very conservative base there, so you say things that you end up having to regret later on. Like one of the times Romney ran, he said, we ought to double Guantanamo Bay. That's shit you can only say in a Republican primary. In the general election, you say that and you lose. So they run too far to the right, and then they have to run to the center for the general election. So they think, as they're projecting onto the Democrats, ooh, build up Bernie, because that means Hillary will run too far to the left, and then she'll have to run back to the center during the election. That's what's going on in their mind, but the reality is what? The far right have unpopular ideas that are abysmal, but the so-called far left is right in the mainstream of American opinion. So they don't even realize it, but the further left Hillary Clinton goes and the further left Bernie Sanders goes, the more popular they become, because the American people are actually progressive on the issues according to the polling data. See, that's what they're missing, man. They think they came up with this absolutely genius idea. They're like, ooh, build up Bernie Sanders, because then we'll win. Oh, iceberg dead ahead, bitch. You want to build up Bernie Sanders? You want to help build up Bernie Sanders, and you think he's not going to come in and wreck you? But he's going to do exactly that. He's going to... See, the thing is, Bernie Sanders' biggest hurdle to get over is the primary. That's where his real race is. Because you put him in a general election with one of the Republicans, he will run roughshod over the Republicans, and I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that if Bernie were to get through the primary somehow, he could win a general. The general's not going to be the biggest problem for Bernie Sanders. The problem is the primary process and Hillary Clinton standing in his way and big money standing in his way because big money's going to go to Hillary Clinton. So they don't realize, man, they're fucking themselves. And by the way, so many corporatist Democrats and centrist Democrats have bought into this theory, and as a result of it, to the Republicans' theory, and as a result of it, they're saying, oh my God, pay no attention to Bernie Sanders. They're saying, oh, run into Hillary's arms and support Hillary more because the Republicans want to build up Bernie Sanders because they think it'll help them. But like I said, it's not going to help them. It's not going to help them. So to all the centrist Democrats and all the corporatist Democrats, what I would say is you don't realize the Republicans are so stupid they're actually helping you. It turns out that this prediction that they're making is just as bad as every other prediction that they've ever fucking made. So for example, you got people like Bill Kristol support this theory, support doing this. Bill Kristol, look at his predictions on Iraq. Every single fucking one was dead wrong. We'll be greeted as liberators. The oil will pay for the war. We'll be in and out in a couple months. All the neocon idiots who were dead wrong about everything in their entire lives are now the people saying, hey, it's good to build up Bernie Sanders because that'll hurt Hillary Clinton and then we'll have a better chance of winning in the general election. No, that's not true, big guy. So Bernie keeps doing what he's doing. Let's say Hillary goes to the left. Now, again, it's not a foregone conclusion that Hillary's going to win. So, but either way, whether Hillary Clinton gets through or Bernie Sanders gets through or it's anybody else, the further left the Democrats go, the better a chance they have of winning. Because again, the polling data shows the American people are actually with the so-called far left in America. Because the so-called far left in America is actually relatively centrist all around the world. That's what Bernie Sanders represents, international centrism. See, the Republicans don't get it. You're the extreme ones. The Democrats are not extreme. So when you say, oh, you run to the far left, it'll hurt you. No, it won't. It'll make them more popular. I love that the Republicans are embracing this idea, which is only going to hurt them. So I welcome you, man. Keep building up Bernie Sanders. And by the way, another good side effect of this is what? There are some really, deep conservatives who kind of are fucking, really disillusioned with the establishment, really disillusioned with the Republican Party. And you get voices from all across the political spectrum building up somebody like Bernie Sanders, and then they listen to Bernie Sanders, and he always talks about the bankers and how they're robbing you, and they're robbing you, and they're robbing you. You think he's not going to get some crossover voters? Of course he is! Keep building him up. I love it.